Welcome to the Music Life podcast from BBC World Service. I'm Jeff Mills. Music Life is a weekly show where artists from around the world get together to discuss all aspects of our lives in sound. Today, I'm joined by Neue Grafik, Prabhu Edouard, and Knoel Scott. We'll be talking about improvisational performance, rhythms as a form of communication, and how technology is overtaking the artist. So let's get started. Sure, okay.
Here it is.
I can't see Fred.
Perfect for me. Are you on your phone or something like that, Prabhu?
Yeah, cool.
Okay.
That's called improvisation. So we are into the topic. So that's good.
Hello, I'm Jeff Mills. In 2018, I set up the Afro-Funk Electro Jazz Ensemble called Tomorrow Comes the Harvest with the late Nigerian drummer Tony Allen to experiment with different sounds. I've been making music and performing with the collective ever since, which now consists of keyboardist Jean-Phi Dary and one of today's guests, the master of the tabla, Prabhu Edouard. Joining me today are a group of musicians known for their boundary-pushing sounds. First up, it's a composer, producer, and multi-instrumentalist making a truly unique sound. Blending hip-hop, jazz, and house, his music draws a map between his African heritage, time in Paris, and love of London's grime scene. Forming the Neue Grafik ensemble at his after-hours jam sessions at London's Total Refreshment Centre, he's established himself as a formidable force in the world of jazz. It's Neue Grafik. Fred, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you, Jeff Mills, for the invitation.
Oh, you're very welcome. Where are you right now?
I live in London right now for the last 7 years.
Right. And what have you been up to recently?
I'm working a lot on the jam sessions. I have a project called Ori, which just reunites all the best musicians from London, but also the people who come here for their first experience on stage. Thundercat came to our session, Shabaka Hutchins as well, Esperanza Spalding.
Yeah, it sounds very, very interesting. I have to catch some of these sessions.
Now the debris settled from the blast of rage, body built back from a scribble in ash. Now the black gold gilded the lonesome grey. See a man in the mirror of a certain age. Certain man did never make it this far. Give thanks and praise. Here we are.
Next up, an Indo-French percussionist and composer who's recognized as one of the most versatile tabla players of his generation. A student of the legendary Pandit Shankar Ghosh, he's collaborated with artists from around the world, including Jean-Pierre Jouet and Lakshmi Shankar, and is even part of my Afro-Funk Electro Jazz Ensemble, Tomorrow Comes the Harvest, is Prabhu Edouard. Prabhu, how are you?
I'm fine. Thank you, Jeff.
And where are you now?
I'm in Valence, in my home, and 41 degrees Celsius outside, and the frying process has started, but it's okay. It's like being in New Delhi, in southeast of France.
Right. And finally, it's an American saxophonist and composer best known for his time with the legendary jazz collective Sun Ra Arkestra. With a career spanning more than 40 years, he's worked alongside jazz greats including Lou Donaldson and Leon Thomas. Most recently, he's released his first major studio album entitled Celestial with longtime collaborator, legendary Marshall Allen. It's Knoel Scott. We've never met. I've heard of you, of course, and your work with Sun Ra Arkestra. It's such a pleasure to finally meet you. How are you?
I'm well blessed, and I really appreciate your invitation to this event.
Are you based in Europe right now? Or are you? Where are you now?
Well, I'm currently on holiday. The orchestra just finished a European tour. We did 2 days in London, then Liverpool, Salisbury, Perugia, Hamburg, and Vienna.
Can you tell us about your thought process in preparing for improvisational performances so you can be creative in real time? What kind of goes through your mind, maybe perhaps before, during, or maybe even after, that plays a role in the whole process of improvising and playing in real time for audiences? Prabhu?
You're talking of the moment before going on stage, right?
Correct.
That's a crucial moment, because before that, a lot happens between you and the spirit of your instrument. But before you go, I think you are just asking your instrument to collaborate and to show the way this day. Because it can be a different day. You know, your hand can be, your voice or your breath can be in a very specific condition, but the instrument is going to have its own mood. So you would invoke the instrument. And, you know, I go on stage and I touch the carpet and I do that gesture, which is in touching the forehead and the heart, which means that, you know, I'm entering the temple and I'm asking, you know, the gods and the spirits to show me the way.
Interesting. Knoel, how do you approach this process?
Well, Sun Ra, he would speak about playing a lot. And he said, you might think about showing your excellence on your instrument, your knowledge of music. You might think about impressing the ladies in the audience or doing a grand performance. I'll get you a lot of money. But the music comes from the creator, and you should be thinking about doing something to please the creator. So the orchestra does a circle where we invoke the creator to bless our music. So the preparation for us and myself, I try. Sometimes I fail at that. Because, yes, I am thinking about my instrument. I'm thinking about, you know, chord changes and things like that sometimes. But really, you're supposed to be a conduit for praising the creator and asking him to remove your ego so that he can speak through your instrument.
Interesting. Fred, how do you approach this process?
It's a bit boring, my way to say it, but it's just a thing at home and practicing. Trying to understand the phrases and the rhythm that I love, start to know what kind of melodies or what kind of sensitivity I have, and just be prepared to explore it when I go on stage and I just have to switch off and play. The best improvisations that I've done in my life were the moments where I was not thinking about anything. I just embody the music. It's a discussion that you want to have with other musicians. And you know that other musicians are doing the same thing. They're trying to talk to you. You know, when you see each other, you have a big smile on your face. If you want to get this feeling, it's something that you have to prepare.
Right. Yeah, you know, do you think that it would be safe to say that improvisational is perhaps maybe connected to who you really are?
Yeah.
You react based on how you feel. And how you feel can be shaped by any and everything that's going on in the world, you know, up until that moment that you actually do it. And that is the accumulation of perhaps maybe the past 24 hours, perhaps your whole life, you know, leads up to that one moment. So there's a tremendous amount of truth in improv. Even if you make a mistake, you have to own it. It comes from you. And so it's more about life than it is about music, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
Knoel, the musicians of your band, finding that type of honesty and clear view about the musician's personality, is that important? Is that a factor that you always look for in choosing musicians to play with?
I think what the brother just talked about, communication. Now, in order to communicate, first you have to listen. And if you have your own preconceived idea of things, then your ears are not open to listen. Therefore, you're not communicating. It is a conversation. It's called response.
Sure. From the moment that I leave the hotel to go to the venue is when it starts. And I begin to think about what the possible conditions could be. And I'm thinking about what would happen during the day. And I've kind of convinced myself over the years to only pay attention to my surrounding for the first 10 minutes. After that, it becomes almost a blur. Because of the lights, because of the sound, I really kind of lose the sense as to where I am. And I'm just following the music and I'm following the sound. and the audience disappears, the lights disappear, the sound engineers disappear, sometimes even the equipment. Before I know it, the performance is over, and I come back or I wake up. But I do try to detach myself away from the circumstances, so I feel that I have complete freedom to do whatever that I feel. Sometimes it's a positive, sometimes it's a negative, but it is what it is.
Yes, it's about honesty. It's about being yourself. It's about being true. There is a philosophical statement that states that when you jump 2 times, you never jump into the same river, because the flow is different. And that stream which you were talking about, you lose yourself. Because you lose yourself, when you recover yourself, you see that you are a different person. It's Herbianca's playing on some important moment, and he misses a note, and it's so wrong in the chord progression that he just takes his 2 hands and puts them in his head, in a guilty feeling, and is thinking that's gone, and the piece is just teared up. And there comes Miles, and he plays such a note that it repairs the whole thing. So what Herbie is saying is that, okay, I got a lesson, but after that experience, I was a different person. And I think that in intense moments of music, it transforms the listener and the musicians. I mean, you could tell Knoel, if I see it right, the way you must have experienced it real time.
Yes, you made me laugh with that. People always ask us for a set list, and we never have a set list. The spirit of the moment, as Marshall would say. But you do have an idea at first. Okay, well, I think we're going to do this, and we're going to do that. And then the music happens, and then the music creates a whole other atmosphere and a whole other road. I thought we were going to go down this road. Oh, no. This road is another road has just opened up, so we're going to go this way. And the responsibility is that a person in charge is to be aware that that road is open and forget about your own preconceived idea of things. And sometimes it's not you that opens up the road. Another musician opens up the road. And they go, oh, okay. You have to be flexible, and you have to be quick, and you have to pay attention to what's going on. The experience itself dictates its own evolution and its own development.
That makes perfectly good sense, yeah. I think you have to be a good conversationalist, too. I think you have to, to improvise and to be spontaneous. First, you have to have something to say. I think there has to be something in your personality that needs to come out, and you just need that moment to say it. You're listening to the BBC World Service, and this is Music Life. I'm Jeff Mills, joined by Neue Grafik, Prabhu Edouard, and Knoel Scott. Most of what we see in the public sphere about Afrofuturism is generally about what things look like, and behind that comes the sound, and then a more spiritual connection to diaspora. So the question is, how do you feel about the development of Afrofuturism and the African diaspora? How we use rhythms to communicate beyond rhythm. In other words, so we use music to communicate things that we can't say with words, for instance. Connecting with your ancestors about knowledge about the stars, or traveling throughout the cosmos and the universe, or being in touch with a type of feeling that you've never seen here on planet Earth. Fred, what do you think about that?
That's actually like a deep question for me. Because a big part of my music and my vision is based on what I consider being the Afrofuturism. A lot of my vision is based on who did what before me and why this thing is important. And when I see, for instance, like Jordan Peele, the work of Donald Glover on Atlanta, and for me, when I say all that is linked with me today, is because if we talk about Sun Ra, it's the perfect example. But you also have George Clinton, like some people would just want to avoid to just be pigeonholed in just one version of themselves. And I think that's the way I see the Afrofuturism today. For me, it's like how to be yourself, but also not saying yourself as the stereotype that society tried to see you. Also, for me, it's a way to think about the black community outside the box. One good example, and when I say we are surrounded by it, it's like even when I hear the music today, when I see the amapiano genre starting to be really famous right now and almost like mainstream. And as black artists growing up in France with Cameroonian backgrounds, of West African background, it's interesting for me to see people from Africa being the new hot thing. When I globalize all that into Afrofuturism, it's like culturally what we feel right now, my reality is already the future. I'm also already the future of my community.
Sure. Prabhu, how do you weigh in on this subject?
From the Indian point of view, my dad died a couple of months before my brother was composing his album. And he was, for a long time, willing to make a composition for my dad. You know, my brother is a drummer, and he has played with a lot of African musicians. And he wanted that to be a Cameroonese Bikutsi beat. He was listening to a lot of Bollywood. He was listening to a lot of, devotional songs from South India. I asked him why. He said, look, something in Dad is so Cameroonese. When Dad was talking, his groove of speaking manner was Bikutsi. Don't ask me why. It's just that. So he has called that piece Appa, which means dad. And Etienne Mbappe, who is a great maestro, Cameroonese bass player. And along with him, there is this wonderful singer, Varija Shri Venugopal. And she's, kind of a young star in Carnatic South Indian classical music. And the combination of this Bikutsi rhythm with improvisation in the South Indian way, it's so befitting. So, Afrofuturism is that for me. But, sometimes I listen to my nephews, the youngest ones, and there is this amazing artist. They thought I won't like it. They played Calm Down, Rema, this is a global hit. And I started to look for some other things from him. People from Calcutta, Bombay, Chennai start to improvising the India way on his composition, which is Nigerian composition. So you see, from the very beginning, we've got these influences. And now I think for, some good or bad reasons, the social medias are enabling people to have access to that wealth of Africa. And that's also what is happening, when I'm with you and Jean-Phi. And I get this vibration coming from him, who was so connected to Tony Allen, and I can feel the spirit of Tony Allen. So it feels super inspiring. It's quite progressive way of Afrofuturism.
Sure. And Knoel, how do you see Afrofuturism and the movement and the visions that are coming from it?
The term Afrofuturism did not originate in the African community, first of all. I feel that Sun Ra would have never embraced that term. Sun Ra was the first or second documented case of alien abduction, where he was taken to Saturn and given a mission to save black people through music. Around the late 80s, he said, well, this band and this music was organized to save black people, but they didn't want it, so I'm going to give it to the whole world. And his outreach of the band since then has reflected that. So back to Afrofuturism, which, if you look at the term, it implies that there is something mythical about this. There is nothing mythical about the connection between the ancient Egyptians, who were Nubians, and outer space. There's nothing mythical about the connection between the Dogon tribe and Sirius B, the star Sirius B, which was not discovered until 1953. Yet, this nation of Dogon were involved in rituals involving the inception of the star for centuries. The connection between people of African descent and the stars and the worlds beyond this one is a connection that is very real. The unification or the genetic memory which flows through our youth and the youth of melanated peoples all over the world is because we come from one source. This concept of so-called Afrofuturism, I think, well, for me, it is a reawakening of this genetic memory through music without it being diluted or even poisoned as so-called rap has been poisoned with this gangsterism and the negativity involved. Western culture weaponizes everything, and they weaponize our music, and they've weaponized the music of the inner city so that we implode, so we use it against each other. I feel that as improvising artists, it is to make people happy and to inspire people and to bring joy and love into them. And it's also of our obligation to enlighten our youth that the purpose of music is to enlighten and to bring a positive result. The basic rhythms of this so-called hip-hop movement are Zulu war rhythms. When you put electronics coupled with war rhythm, that's why there's so much violence associated with the hip-hop and rap movement. So, yes, we are going to go back to the stars because it's only a divine intervention which is going to heal this planet. Because right now, planet Earth is quarantined. They may have aspirations, but what being from any other galaxy or solar system would want to be infected with the type of negativism that this planet is doing? We destroy the sea. So we have a lot to struggle against, and I feel that this so-called afrofuturism movement should be a movement towards a reconnection with the Creator.
Right, right. I think that Afrofuturism, the term and what we see about Afrofuturism, is just one small example of what happens when you put instruments and machines that make music and make rhythm in the hands of people that were already fitted with a connection to such knowledge about the stars and everything beyond this planet. It's just one small example of what happens when you give a certain group of people the means to be able to communicate beyond our normal ways of communicating, writing, reading, and speaking. And so you produce someone like a George Clinton, or you produce someone like a Sun Ra, or you produce someone that will see the usage of this instrument in another way.
And also, for me, I see Afrofuturism linked with how the African community embrace technology, embrace art in general. And again, the Sun Ra Arkestra, this is really an honor to talk right now to someone who is a part of a band representing literally that. I'm also seeing that when you do your best to be a leader, a light or a compass for your own journey, you also open a door and you also create a new future, and people watch you.
Sure, sure. We've touched on the subject of technology a few times. How do you think technology is affecting our process of making music? And how do you feel if it means the participation of artists becomes less and less? Prabhu, what do you think about that?
In the beginning of 19th century, the instruments were in big temples or the big Maharaja's courts. And the acoustic was made so that, somebody would pluck a string instrument and like 100 meters away you could hear. And that was no more the case when there was an immense change in the way the performances were done. They went from temple to, courts, from courts to surround the music, and then they went to audience with microphones and everything. So again, the technology came in, and you couldn't play the way you were playing before. So, because technology gets in, something is going to spoil the music. It depends on what we do with that technology. And that's what is happening when we play with electronic music. Because if I just ask the sound engineer that, just give me something coming from Jeff. No, it doesn't make sense. Because you've got a specific tool, and it's an organic tool, though it's an electronic tool, It's my mindset that should incorporate the fact that you are an organic musician. I think it's just the perception we have of technology that makes us making the best of it or not.
Knoel, how do you think about that?
I agree with that very much. Sun Ra's and Marshall Allen's both have the same approach. Sun Ra's to the synthesizer and Marshall's approach to EVI. First time I saw EVI was around 1979 over Miles Davis' house on 77th Street. So Miles hands me the EVI. And there's a thing, it's octaves is down here, and I'm trying to mathematically work out how the instrument worked. I mean, he grabbed the instrument back. He played it randomly without thinking. Same way Marshall plays it. When Sun Ra played the synthesizer, it wasn't about him technically understanding what each button. No, it was almost intuitive. And the effect was that FBI ended up following Sun Ra around because they were trying to figure out how he was in contact with the aliens. I listened to Sun Ra synthesizer, and then I put on the sounds of, because now they got these microphones that have the sound of the moon, the sound of Mars, and the sound of Saturn, and it sounds just like And a lot of the electronic music that comes out of our community and our artists actually channeling the sounds of the universe. How are we channeling this? The only way we can channel this is if there is already a connection.
Yeah, I just have a question about Sun Ra. Could he see Earth from another position? Could he see us from outside of his own surroundings?
I can't speak for Sun Ra. I can only tell you what I've experienced. We were putting equipment in the van. Sun Ra was sitting in the van. He's in the van across the street. I went inside the house, and Sun Ra was coming down the steps. Hey, Sun Ra, but you was in the van. That was my other self. That's the only way I can answer that question. So if you put that story in all of its connotations, how do you read that?
Wow, interesting. Okay. Fred, what do you think about the technology and what it's doing to us? What do you think?
Okay, that's really hard to reply after.
I know, it's incredible. It's an incredible story.
That's just insane. Okay, so I'm obviously like a kid of computers, samplers. I learned even some of my big references in jazz music through listening to some music from the past, put them into this black box and doing something new. That's the way I learned to make my own music. So as I come from the opposite, technology was my main tool for a long time. So it was not affecting me. It was my first instruments. For me, it's the opposite. It's the piano and the natural instruments who affected me. I needed to learn that after learning how to produce music by myself. In my process, I listened to a lot of different music, which put me in a transcendental state. And I also compose some music in a moment, like with the technology. Like I don't know if you live that, Jeff, but you know when you are with all your gears around you and you have a setup, and you know when you push this button or when you change this pattern or you change these things, it will change completely the moods. You got the perfect pattern, perfect track, and all you have to do is record it, and you do a jam with yourself. Everything is aligned. You feel you're connected with something. It happens to me a few times. So for me, this transcendental states that Knoel was talking through the Sun Ra Arkestra, I got it sometimes when I'm on stage with some people, but it's also something that I felt through the technology, just by myself. You feel, oh, I touched something. So for me, like, this state of mind is deeply human. The technology affects the music, it affects more the sounds, but not the deep essence of the music.
Have you ever done that? Everything come out, and now you had pressed the button to record, and it didn't record.
Many times. And at that point, I don't question it. I just figured that something happened, and someone's trying to tell me something. I don't pursue it. But listen, I'm going to waive my answer. You said something that is so interesting that I have to ask you more about it. I mean, I didn't know that Sun Ra and Miles Davis had contact. I mean, or...
It wasn't contact. Miles used to be in back of the theater, and Miles had several rules. One of the rules was you couldn't put him on after Sun Ra. Because you never put his band on after Sun Ra. He had to open up for us. He would never play after.
Right. Wow. Yeah. Wow.
But the reason I asked you that is that when you had them transcendental moments with your technology and it wouldn't record, Sun Ra explained that when that would happen, that's because the creator took it for himself.
Well, first off, I have to say that I don't think anything is new. I think the way that time is situated, and there's so many different stars and so many planets around stars, I think we are reliving something that probably has already happened, and so much feels like deja vu, you know. So when I'm in the studio and I'm in front of the equipment, I think that I'm not creating anything new. I'm just adding on to an idea that probably already existed somewhere, someplace in time and space. And I don't own anything. I'm just reminding people of a certain way to feel through sound. And by that, I'm connected to any and every other musician in any other genre that has ever lived, because our goal is the same thing. So that's my piece. So we're at the end of the interview. Thanks so much to my guests, Neue Grafik, Prabhu, Edouard, and Knoel Scott. Thanks for listening. I'm Jeff Mills.
It's been my great pleasure. Right now, I guess I'm seeing how well this latest record is going. It's myself, my quartet, featuring Marshall Allen. It's probably the last time Marshall was played saxophone, because now he's just playing EVI. And it's called Celestial. It's on Night Dreams.
That's beautiful. And Fred?
I play with my community every Monday at Color Factory from 8 to midnight in London, and every Tuesday at Jean-Phi in Peckham Rye. So if you're in London, don't hesitate to come through. And I will play with the Ori community for Peckham Festival, the 16th of September. And if I have just the last words to say, is the most incredible interview in my entire life. I didn't expect to have so many legends talking about their own experience with the music. You literally represent two aspects of my personality and what I'm doing, Knoel and you, Jeff. And I'm really happy to know you as well, and your words were incredible, Prabhu. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And Prabhu?
Of course, tabla will sneak in somewhere, a couple of hours every day. And regarding the things I'm doing, people could go on my website and figure that out. This interview was super inspiring because it connects the past, the present, and the future, but it brings back always to the present time. It really shows that, every being is a multidimensional being. And we are so lucky, and thank you so much, Knoel, for those amazing stories that inspires us. The Dravidians, these are the ancestors of the Tamil people. They were worshipping the sun. And Shiva is a word that doesn't exist in Sanskrit because it comes from Tamil, which means the red deity. And ever since I knew that Sun Ra, was connected to sun, I was feeling the strong connection with the Dravidian people. And the funny thing is that the South Indian rhythms, connect so well with African rhythms, Mandingo rhythms. All these things you cannot explain why, but it's just the way it is.
Okay. I'm always working on like 100 things at the same time, but on September 8th at the Barbican, Tomorrow Comes the Harvest performs with Neue Grafik. This is the first of a guest that's going to sit in on these type of performances that will happen throughout our tour. Thank you all for your participation and incredible insight about music and improvising.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You can find loads of other episodes at the website, featuring everyone from Sanford the Great to Paul Wolford. Plus, there are playlists curated by artists from the show. Head to bbcworldservice.com